Even the Rat Was White by Robert Guthrie recognizes the struggles of African Americans within psychology. It shows the long-time struggle of racist work within psychological experiments. Lots of these studies and tests they did were to oppress the African Americans and push the idea that blacks were inferior and the whites were superior.
It all dates back to as early as the 17th century, seen in England's poetic and artistic pieces that portrayed Africans as inferior and repulsive. Europeans explained the dark complexions by religious or philosophical reasonings or claimed that it was due to filth or traces of carbon trapped in their skin. Because having darker complexion was recognized as a degeneration of mankind, this led to the labeling of dark-skinned people as savage, thus lending themselves to the Eurocentric investigations, measurements, and studies. This belief of a noble savage referred to those of a darker complexion, which led to the disapproving European attitudes held towards dark-skinned people.
Felix von Luskin's porcelain scale of skin color standards was internally acclaimed by virtue of his stature and esteem in the field of anthropology. The technique for using this scale was simple. The color blocks were held to the subject's forearm until a match was made. We used paint samples to show examples of how this method is used. What they did during this test is similar to putting these paint samples to someone's skin. Bruner Bay stated that the most useful race of identification is hair. A single hair representing the average form characteristic of the race might serve to define it. Bay classified hair into 3 categories. 1. Short, crisp, fleecy, usually called woolly. 2. Long, lank, or cylindrical horse mane type, mostly black. And 3. Intermediate, wavy, curly or smooth, every shade, characteristic of Caucasian people. Paul Broca also classified hair into 3 similar categories. Number 1, straight-haired, usually Mexican. Number 2, wavy or curly-haired, usually Iranian, Australian, Anglo-Saxon, and Mediterranean. And number 3, woolly-haired, usually African and Oceanic.
Broca's technique was all about comparison of skin colors. A set of color patterns resembling the color section cards seen in many of today's paint stores was used to match the skin hue of the subjects. His technique was widely praised due to its accuracy, and many other methods would soon follow.
Davenport's Guide to Physical Anthropometry and Anthroposcopy delineates no fewer than 35 observations of the human body. Among those is a discussion concerning the measurement and classification of lip sizes. When lightly closed, the height of the lips is measured. Firstly, there is thin lips, below 0.2 millimeters. Secondly, there is medium, 0.2 to 0.29 millimeters. Thirdly, there's thick lips, 0.3 to 0.44 millimeters. And lastly, very thick lips, 0.45 millimeters and over.
The color top was made by the Milton Bradley Company in Springfield, Massachusetts. A color top is a little device designed for expressing color quantitatively. This toy later was called the pupil's color top. They were hard discs of standard black, red, yellow, and white colors arranged so that varying proportions of each were exposed as sectors of a circle. The 4 circles were labeled negrum, red, white, and yellow. When the top was spun, the colors blended until they matched the skin tone of the individual. After this, researchers would record the percentages of each color.
During the times of these tests, racism was a huge and common problem within society. The people were certain that black people were inferior to white people, and they were running tests in order to prove that theory. These methods and procedures seemed to be taken in the white people's favor and could have caused many riots and rebellions to those who didn't agree with the techniques they were using against the people of color. If we were to do these tests today, they would be done completely different and more reasonable. In the past, they did these tests to oppress African Americans. Our knowledge and understanding has changed quite a bit when compared to back then. We aren't using such racist ways to test skin colors or divide people of color from white people.